If you are a voice teacher or a piano teacher or really any kind of independent private music instructor, today's video is for you. I'm going to share with you a bunch of advice and tips on how to run your studio without losing your mind. If that's something that you need, stick around. I'm Brenda Earle-Stokes. I'm the owner and creator of Piano and Voice with Brenda. I make creative and practical resources for singers, pianists, and music educators. And today I'm going to talk to you all about my best advice and tips to protect your sanity as a private teacher of music. Whether you are a singing teacher, a piano teacher, a trombone teacher, this is for you. As private music teachers, we are actually business owners, which can wreak havoc on our minds and on our sanity. I have been running a private studio for many, many years. I think it's over 25 years now, and I can offer you some great advice on how to keep your sanity while providing a great environment in your studio. The number one thing I can say for anyone who's going down this road is you need to have boundaries. Boundaries! Having appropriate boundaries in your studio is crucial to keeping a peaceful teaching environment and avoiding many of the pitfalls that we can get stuck in as private teachers. Consider placing boundaries around your time. When do your lessons start and end, for example? How many emails and phone calls should you be expected to make for each of your students? And something very simple like, do you have a late policy or a cancellation policy? So let's start off first with communication. Emails and phone calls with your students and/or their parents. Some students and parents expect a lot of interaction via emails and phone calls, which can take up an incredible amount of time. I'm sure you've been there before. I set very firm boundaries around my time, letting parents know that I do send occasional reports and updates, and I send a variety of emails to parents, keeping them informed of their students' progress and of upcoming events like recitals. And if something comes up, there's some difficulty in the lesson or some communication issue, I definitely make myself available to parents or to my students to answer their questions. But when it starts to take up too much of my time, I set a boundary there. So I let parents know that we can schedule a time to meet in person, and then they can pay me my regular rate. Now, this often comes up during college auditions or high school performing arts auditions. And so rather than spending hours on the phone or hours in email communication, I sell that as a service to my parents. Having some kind of a policy in place by which you set up a reasonable boundary for you to be able to spend a certain amount of time talking to your students outside of lessons, or maybe you create a package by which there's a certain amount of time. Otherwise, I try to address most of these questions and issues within the actual structure of the lesson itself. So the next thing I want to talk about is doing extras. So in addition to being a voice teacher, I'm also a professional pianist, and I offer college audition, professional development training, as well as I'm also a music arranger and a music copyist. So over the years, I have finally learned to not give all of this away for free to my students. It creates a tremendous amount of additional work for me. It also creates an expectation that somehow this is part of what I'm supposed to offer. And it creates an environment where my skills are not really valued for what they are. So I would say to you, please do not give your time away. Now what I do is I save the last few minutes at the end of the lesson, and the student can record the accompaniment part. They stick their recording device out and I will play it for them right then and there. Or I will, if I'm on a Zoom lesson, I'll record it during the lesson time on my phone or recording device, and then I will email it to them after the lesson. So now if somebody needs me to prepare music for them, or they have more elaborately involved accompaniment that they want me to record, so it's a piece of music that I don't know or is very challenging and I have to prepare it, I quote people a price and they pay me for that time. And the same goes if people want to have professional development sessions. So somebody who's looking to change directions mid-career, or they want counseling on whether they should go to a graduate program or college prep support, that is all scheduled as a service, and I am paid for my time. I've had a long career in music. I am knowledgeable, as I'm sure you are too if you are watching this, and it's really, really important that we don't give these services away for free for people. We want to make sure that we value our time, and people will value our time as well. So the next thing I want to talk about is scheduling and billing, and this is just a headache right away. It could be so stress-inducing. The number one thing I say is make sure you're charging enough for lessons, okay? So many teachers undervalue for their work, and they end up working way too much and making way too little. Now, it's so important that you value your experience and your work, and that you demand a fee that makes sense for you financially. Now, ask around in your area what the going rate for teachers is, right? So it's going to be different. I'm in New York City. It's going to be very different if you live in Gary, Indiana, or you live in Hamilton, Ontario, or wherever you live. So figure out what the kind of going area rate is for your teachers in your area, and then adjust your own rate according to your experience level, your training, and your skills. Now, I'm a voice teacher who has professional piano skills, a master's degree, extensive training, and performance experience. And so I charge on the higher side of things, not the highest, but definitely on the higher side. But for what people are getting from me, the value they're getting, I am 100% worth it and completely comfortable with what I charge. Another question that you might want to ask for your own situation is, are you going to charge by semester, by month, or by lesson? Now, there are a lot of different schools of thought on this. There's a million articles out there you can check out on whether you want to do a yearly thing, a semester thing, a monthly thing, rolling tuition, or just do drop-in. So that's something for you to ask yourself. One thing you need, though, for sure, is a solid studio policy that includes a late policy so that you're not going to lengthen the lesson if someone doesn't show up on time. So if your lesson is at noon and you show up at 12:15 for a half an hour lesson, your lesson goes till 12:30 still. It doesn't get extended. You need to have an absence policy. So what is it, 24 hours notice, 48 hours notice? What do you do about no-shows? All of these things protect your time and scheduling. And another thing you need to have is an illness policy. Okay, so how are you going to handle it if somebody is sick? Does that fall as a regular absence? Like, how do you work? Do you go onto Zoom in that case? So these are all things that you need to have in your studio policy. Having a solid studio policy that is written and signed by your students is going to save you so much time, so much money, and so many headaches. The clearer you are with your policies, the less issues you're going to have, and you can focus on your teaching instead of having nightmare phone calls with people. Little tidbit advice that you may not think of in the moment is to avoid common scheduling pitfalls. Don't teach on holidays, maybe like Halloween night or Memorial Day weekend. Also have a list of the days and weeks that you will be available to teach each semester and over the summer break if you take one. I have recently switched, actually probably about 10 years ago, to semester billing for my weekly students, and that has dramatically increased my revenue and has really reduced the amount of emails that I send by like 80%. And so what I do for each semester, which works great for me, these are for high school students, for teenagers, or for middle school students or college students, is that I have semester billing September to December. I follow the calendar for when Christmas and Thanksgiving are. And then the same with the spring, when the Easter break is, when the March break is, when the major holidays are. And I make sure that I don't coincide anything at that time. For my drop-in students, people I see only occasionally, I use an online scheduling app. So I like to use Acuity. I know there's a ton of them out there. Fonz is another one. My music staff is another one. There's a ton of really great ones out there. And my students can see what slots I have available, and they schedule themselves right on the app. So if they need to cancel, they also actually pay on the app too. So if they need to reschedule, they can reschedule right on the app, and I don't need to go back and forth emailing 50 times of saying, can you do Tuesday? No, I can't. What time on Wednesday? So having Acuity in place has really, really saved me in a big way. So something all of us need more of is this next one, and I call this section, give yourself a break, okay? So make sure when you're putting your schedule together that you schedule time to eat, to rest, to go to the bathroom, and to do administrative work. So everyone needs to eat lunch and dinner, okay? And everyone needs to have time to take a short walk or a rest, run a couple of errands, run a couple of emails out. Make sure you include in your weekly schedule when you're going to take care of those administrative tasks, or you may find yourself staring at the computer for hours after hours. And you do not want to have to put yourself into a situation where you're so jammed in tight you don't have time for a coffee break or a lunch break, or time to answer the few pressing emails that might come in. You also, while you're doing all of this, need to consider what your day, your week, your month, and your year look like, and make sure that you are giving yourself appropriate breaks in the short and long term. So no one can teach 7 days a week without getting burnt out. And if you don't leave room in your week, just general week, then you're going to have a heck of a time trying to have doctor's appointments, your own voice lessons, and just general self-care, like going to that yoga class. Everyone also needs a vacation. And so you want to give yourself plenty of opportunities to take time off so you can enjoy your family, you can travel, you can live your life. By taking these breaks at times that make sense for you and maybe fit into your student schedule as well, like the Christmas holidays or maybe over summer, by scheduling time to rest and recharge and pursue other things and take care of your life business, you're going to be such a more relaxed and positive person, and your students will thank you. So one other section that I want to talk about is professional development, because it's so easy to get stuck into the daily grind of teaching and forget that we're actually doing something that we love, right? It's also important to make sure you take time to improve your skills, to learn new, more current information, and to develop a network of professional organizations and colleagues who will enrich your knowledge and will enrich your work. One great way to do this is to go out to hear music whenever you can. So I find a great way for me to stay content with my teaching is to make sure that I am frequently taking in live performances. So since I live in New York City, there are literally hundreds of choices every week, so I can do that all the time. Depending on where you are in your area, maybe you try to go out to hear things at your local coffee house if there are performances, or if there's a symphony orchestra nearby, or if there's high school musical productions that are going on. Those are all ways that you can keep yourself kind of pumped and to remember the reason that we do this to begin with. I find that going out to hear live music on a regular basis helps me to stay really inspired and motivated. So next good thing for you to do is to take courses and go to conferences. So I try to take a few courses or seminars every year as a way to keep my knowledge current and to keep my skills sharp. So over the years, I have taken courses in voice pedagogy, choral conducting, circle singing, songwriting, and all of these great resources I bring back to share with my students. So another thing that's really important to do is to join organizations which provide professional development, resources, and just a community of other people like you who do what you do to bond with. There are a ton of really great resources for music teachers, and you can find an organization that is, under the umbrella of the kind of work that you do. So for voice teachers, the NATS, National Association for Teachers of Singing, is great. There's ones for trombone and ones for piano. There's a ton of them. There are also a lot of great groups on social media that you can join to chat with like-minded professionals. Sometimes Facebook and Instagram can be more than just a time waster, but looking for positive, supportive social media groups are a great way too, because I find the several voice teacher groups, for example, people are sharing all kinds of really unique teaching techniques posts, or they're sharing resources from all over the world, or they're sharing maybe new research in the field. So I love, that's kind of a cheap and cheerful way to keep my foot in the door and have a community around me of people I can get inspired from and get ideas and also share my experience with as well. So I hope this video has given you some great ideas of ways that you can really nourish yourself, protect your boundaries, and build a successful private teaching business. Once again, having those boundaries in play of how you're going to communicate with people, how many extra things are you going to do, what are you going to charge, what are your scheduling policies, and how are you going to keep yourself active and engaged in this work in the long run. All of these are components that will make you a more satisfied, happier, and more successful small business owner. I hope this video was helpful for you today. If you liked it, make sure you leave a like and leave me a comment below and let me know which of these was the best tip that you liked or which of these you think is going to be the hardest to implement. If you want to know more about me, you can check out my website, pianoandvoicewithbrenda.com, and make sure to take a moment and subscribe to my channel. I make new videos like this every single week, all kinds of resources that will support musicians and music teachers like yourself. Thanks so much for watching.